What am I about?
What do I think?
What does it mean? James, what do you think of the podcast? I agree.
Yeah, he's spot on.
Hey there, we are back. Welcome to Two Coins Culture, phenomenal podcast with Erin Hammond.
And my dear friend, Katie Sciba. We're so glad you could join us again.
For episode 4
Episode 4. And what are we?
of 1 million, probably.
You have high hopes for this podcast. We'll be like 95 still talking about this.
I know.
I hope you're all kicking. It'll be great. Yeah, today we're going to talk about a lot of cool things, particularly my method for how I get through getting rid of stuff. Katie has shared her methods of getting rid of stuff with kids and adults. We've talked about that quite a bit, but today I'm going to share my personal experience and what I have done and some steps I have taken or some pivotal principles that I use to get rid of stuff. So enjoy.
So glad that I remembered something right.
Brains.
Ugh.
Yeah, well, I mean, can we talk about that for a second? Because my brain has
Okay.
not been working well, and I think that's something we should talk about in maybe a future episode is how to get rid of the clutter in the head. There's just too many tabs open all the time, so my functioning has decreased, like
Yeah.
severely decreased. Yes.
Okay. So that's why it is not even like good, but paramount to simplify
Yeah.
your life, especially your material clutter or your material excess. Even if you don't have excess, but your brain is too crazy,
Yep.
too active, um, because then you are decreasing the amount of like visual stimulation.
Right. Yeah.
And when you're just like chilling in your house, standing there doing nothing, because we do that all the time, right? And your eyes fall upon a stack or one piece of mail or something, something over here. And then the to-do list just rolls out like a red carpet in your head. And that can be seriously overwhelming to people. I've
Yeah.
gotten to the point where now I have to put my to-do list on sticky notes, and every task is on a sticky note, and I put it on this column in my kitchen, and it'll be sticky notes, maybe something that I need to do during the week, but maybe something I have to do in that day. And I will take the sticky note off of the column once I complete it. And that gives me the little dope hit. But oh my gosh, like some days the sticky notes are just like they just all the way down. It's crazy.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
have to live up here.
Yeah, I like that idea because then you can visibly reduce it. That even makes more sense to me than what I do, which I think I have a pretty stellar system to keep track of myself in my life.
Yes, in the beginning of this system, my kids totally messed with it and they were like, haha, psh. But I told them very vulnerably and very earnestly. I said, listen, this is my brain out here.
You were gonna say that. You're like, you cannot touch my brain.
Yeah, I was like, this is my brain. I need this in order to function. And I even straight up told them, because I was diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. And I said, my brain has difficulty with, like, I know I have to do a thing, but then actually doing it, there's a crack in there. And getting the little reward of taking off the sticky note, that helps me so much. And I was like, so this right here might look like fun to you, but if you want to have fun with sticky notes, here's a pack for you.
Yeah.
These are for me and you're not allowed to mess with it.
Yeah.
And they're super respectful of it now because I'm like, listen, this is because my brain functions in a certain way.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great idea. I really like that.
yeah, it's great. It is so nice. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I've been looking for different ways to kind of organize my life. And I've realized like I need to back up a step, and like get rid of stuff and simplify my life. Um,
Mhm.
like just today, I went through all of our homeschool cubbies, which are out in plain view in
Yeah.
our homeschool room, but it's what should have been our dining room. So it's very visible to me all the time when I'm in the kitchen. And I looked through all the cubbies and I was thinking most of the books that I brought up at the beginning of the school year with good intentions, of course, we've only used about half. And so I thought, I just need to be real about this. I'm not going to use these other books. So I'm going to put them back on the bookshelf down in the basement, like we're going to do a little out of sight, out of mind thing. So I don't, one, feel bad about how badly I'm doing. But secondly, like it is just visual clutter. So it felt really good to just clean everything out. This is what we're using. It's good enough. It's appropriate. This is all kind of like pipe dream if I had a chef and a house cleaner and, somebody to do my laundry and somebody to watch my baby all day. So like
Right.
that's for another season of life. Right now where we're at is here. And so we're going to do it this way. And I just kept thinking like simple is better. Just simple is better. And it's okay. It's okay to do it this way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's just going to alleviate a lot of problems that we have of people not being able to find their notebook or not knowing which book to use or which book I'm talking about. It's like everybody's got like
Mhm.
three things in their little cubby. So there's a lot of open space. It's great. It's great. But so I just removing items and then
Yeah.
coming up with a different way of keeping track of my life because I do have a lot of clutter that's not just like material clutter, you
Oh
know.
God.
I mean,
Yeah.
we could talk for days about that, like emotional clutter, digital clutter, spiritual clutter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like all the clutter that's not just like tangible stuff we have
Huh.
somewhere thinking we would use it. So yeah, I've been kind of clearing those things out, trying to make sense of my life. And it's going well. Like this has been so good for me, Katie.
Love
This
that you chuckle at that. It's going well.
well, because I really had to think about this because part of I've kind of been pushed into this for two reasons. One is I'm doing this podcast with you, and I've said before, I I've been held accountable because if I'm doing a podcast on simplicity, getting rid of things, it's like, well, what kind of uh what's the word? Like
Spokesperson
charlatan
representative.
would I have to be like, oh, you all should simplify. Meanwhile, I'm over here like hoarding everything and not getting rid of anything. So I actually have to put this stuff into practice that we're talking about. Otherwise, I can't speak about it truthfully. So I've been diligent about getting rid of things, but where I put my stuff, so we have a nice what we are hoarding currently is Amazon boxes for me to put my stuff in. So we have a nice collection of those in the garage, but it's dwindling because I will put stuff that I want to get rid of in our guest room where my parents stay when they come down. And I will wait till the very, very, very last minute to actually get the stuff out of the house. So recently, they've come down for Thanksgiving, they've come down for Christmas, and then they're going to come down again in 2 weeks. And what's really nice about that is I put the stuff in the guest room, but I know the clock's a ticking and I only have so much time before my mom and dad are coming down. And I'm not going to make them stay in a room full of stuff. So, literally, this has happened twice now for Thanksgiving and Christmas. The day they come down, I'm like, Kurt, load them up.
You gotta load up the van.
Up, take them wherever, I usually give them a direction, like take these there, take those there, and then I'm done with it.
Yeah.
So that's been great. So the podcast, and then actually putting the stuff in a place where it literally cannot just sit there without some embarrassment or grave inconvenience to someone else. Like I would never make my guests, like my parents especially, but no one really, stay in a room where I've got just boxes of my old junk sitting in that room. So it's a
Yeah.
really good motivation to just get rid of stuff. And I've done that now quite a bit. It's been really great, like really big boxes. I did have a getting rid of things hangover after this last run.
Okay. Talk about that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why that happened, but I think it's because a lot of what I got rid of was my little girls' clothes. Yeah,
Mhm.
I've got a thing with the little kids' clothes. And um I mean, I remember there were days years ago where when I would drop stuff off, I would call you or I would message you, like Marco Polo you, and
Yeah.
be like, it's okay, right? It's okay, right? Like crying. And I don't have to do that anymore, like really with anybody. I don't really have to talk to anybody because um well, I'll get into this here in a little bit, but I've come to realize there are certain things that have helped make this process emotionally easier for me. And
Okay.
and one of them is I would say my first thing that is kind of the linchpin of all of this is finding my deeper yes or my deep why. Like,
Mhm.
why am I even doing this? Because if it's just about clearing out the house or whatever, I mean, I can live with some inconvenient stuff. Like, it's not the best scenario, but I could live with it, right? I can live with stacks of boxes in a closet that I never go into. I can live with a closet full of clothes that I don't really wear. Like, that doesn't bother me that much. But I noticed that when I am bothered is when I have this idea of wanting to invite people over and I'm instantly like, I have nowhere for them to be. Or like only they could come over, but they can't bring their kids because that room and that room and that room are inhospitable to small children because I've got that and that and that sitting around, which really
Yeah.
should be the other room. And so my deeper yes became like community, blessing other people with my home. And
Yeah.
that inspires me every time. So the other day when I was having my emotional hangover, I was like, no, 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 nope, no. Even though those clothes were in a closet that I rarely go into, and really none of my guests would ever get into that closet, it was this deeper yes of like, one, I don't have to think about that anymore. And then two, those clothes are just sitting in there, what? Waiting for who? No, like
Right.
waiting for who? They're waiting for the little girl that needs them right now. So I'm obligated by my own like profession of what I believe about the world and about God and who he is and what I'm supposed to be doing in light of being a follower of his to let that stuff go and let it belong to someone else because it
And
really
I would almost say like, okay, so what are those clothes waiting for? They're waiting for the little girl who needs them now. Might just flip that. The little girl who needs them now is waiting for them.
Mhm.
And that like kind of even just for me right now in the moment kind of ups the urgency. Like, okay, oh my gosh, is there someone who needs this right now? Okay, then let's get this to him or her, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
That's so good. I love
Right.
that.
They can only receive it if I let it go.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, well, and it's been helpful for me because I've spoken about this before, how much I love thrift stores and how early in our marriage, that was where we got stuff. We
Yeah.
got stuff from the thrift store, furniture, clothes. I mean, you name it. We got it from the home decor. And it didn't really occur to me until I don't know, probably, it doesn't really matter, I guess. But like, it was much later that I was like, I really relied on people letting go of their stuff so that I could have that stuff. And it just kind of, it clicked as far as being the receiver of those and being grateful for that. But it's taken many more years for me for that to click as far as like, oh, but I can be on the other end of that. Like
Yeah.
people are relying on me to let go so they can be the receiver and be so grateful.
And how much more rewarding is that whole process when you begin first as the recipient of generosity? And that's humbling, right?
Mhm.
Especially when we've talked about this in the past. In American culture, we want to be self-sufficient. We want to build ourselves up from the ground up, right? And we want to be these like champions of our own lives. But truly, if you examine the life of anyone who is successful, I mean, we all stand on shoulders of others.
Right.
And that's it's so necessary
Right.
and and good. It is truly good to support each other. So to first be a recipient of generosity and to enter that space of humility and
Mhm.
say like, okay, yes, I need you. You know, some anonymous person who donated something so I
Right.
could buy it for 2.99.
Right. Yeah.
Like I need that person. And then to grow and recognize, oh, now I get to be that person.
Yeah.
That is such a gift.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally a gift. And for me, it goes further than that. It goes further than just releasing stuff, but for me to get through that, um it was also thinking about like what is my deeper yes. It's and so I came up with four things that were really important to me. And that was blessing other people with whatever I have, forming community. So I can only really form community in my home with my family, but also with friends or other people if I have space to do that.
Yep.
That also requires having time. So blessing community, time, and then harmony. That's just been a word that is like coming at me from lots of different directions.
Mm.
I just want harmony in my home. And that involves that involves a lot of letting go of material items, letting go of preferences, you know, like there's duties, there's preferences, and we can let go of our preferences for the sake of harmony and for the sake of duty. And so those are my four things that when I've I've caught myself thinking about those things, but when I was sitting down kind of preparing for this, I was like, these are the names of those ideas. And that has been such a game changer when I really put a name to those things. Like, this is really what I want. I really want to bless people. I really want community. I really want time and I really want harmony more than I want this thing. And so that took everything off the table. It took off like this resistance that I had. It took away the desire to sell or to try to recoup a cost from what I had spent. It's made me more mindful about how I spend my money when I go out. Like, is this going to be something that's going to impede me from having blessing or from blessing people, from having community, having time, and having harmony? Then no, I don't want it. And it has really revolutionized everything for me. So yeah, yeah,
That's amazing. Having that kind of focus is, I think, it really is a game changer. And it's just a knife that slices through all of the overthinking that we can fall into. Especially, I mean, when you have stuff and you're like, well, I could sell this. Somebody on Facebook would definitely buy this for $5, $15, whatever money you could recoup from a purchase. And we think, oh yeah, well, I could Craigslist this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. And there are definitely stages of minimalism or simplifying where that can happen. But I think when you have this deeper yes, this lifestyle, this attendance to your own soul,
Mhm.
then letting go is far more rewarding than the quick 20 bucks, you know? And it's because think about like when we're reselling stuff, you're putting time into taking the pictures, listing, answering people's messages, meeting up. Like there is a bit that goes into selling stuff online. And sometimes we can do it and it's great. I mean, there was a time when my family was moving, we were leaving Louisiana, we're coming to Nebraska. And I mean, we were offloading a lot of things, we're donating, and I was selling stuff. And we honestly, because moving is expensive, we needed a little more cash support.
Yeah.
And so I started selling stuff on Facebook and I made $900 in a summer. And that helped buoy us while we were moving.
Right.
And but I think if you're not in some sort of big life change like that, then just letting things go in the name of blessing people and generosity is it's just so beautiful. And it's far more rewarding.
It is, and I think too, like, sometimes when you just let go, you might be surprised at how it comes back to you. You
Mm, mhm.
Like, you might try to let something go to maybe to somebody you know, and they might offer, like, "Do you want something for this?" And then you could say, "No," or you could say, I mean, if you feel the need, if you want
Yes.
to donate something to me monetarily, or maybe they donate something else to you that's helpful, like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Can't think of an example off the top of my head, but there's more of a like a barter system rather than just I'm giving this to this person to get some cash.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of something that was revolutionary in my thinking recently, that it's not that it was the first time that I'd thought about it, but it kind of just thunk, like it found its place in my soul. And
Ah, I love that.
you know, um, is this thought of like I will have whatever I need when I need it. And and again, to like let go of the preferences. Like it might not be exactly what I think I want, but it'll probably be what I need. I feel like there's a Rolling Stones song that's coming out of my mouth. You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. I wasn't trying to quote that, but it was like after I was saying it, I was like, that's familiar. Rolling Stones. But I think it's
I
true.
was already there. I was like, oh man, here it comes.
Mick Jagger, I mean, he was kind of right in that song.
Hardcore minimalist, Mick Jagger.
Hardcore minimalist. But it's true though. I think if we can kind of let go of those things, and kind of the wild search of like, I need to have that and just that exact thing, or I have this idea for something and I know exactly how I want it to look. If you can kind of relinquish that, and then again be the receiver of like, maybe what you're gonna get isn't what you wanted, or maybe the exact thing, but it'll be the perfect thing. It'll be better than what you wanted. And so I've just kind of been mulling this idea over, and having that was kind of the first thing, was like, I have to have a better vision of why I'm doing this and who I'm doing this for, what I would like to see in my life because of getting rid of this stuff. And
Wow.
it has been great. It has been great. There's there's I think when we started this, I could look around my house and be like, well, I mean, I don't really need that, but I'll probably still keep it, you know? And now I'm kind of like, where's the box? Let's just let it go and see what happens. There's been a very interior change for me. Um, and it's not because I'm listening to punk rock music or anything like, like that stuff is certainly helpful. But yeah, there's just been this deep interior change to be
Mhm.
able to just kind of, it's okay. It's going to be all right. You can just
Well,
let,
especially when you have your reason, it's a lovely anchor. For me, um, one of my deeper yeses, one of my anchors has been hospitality for
Mm,
my own family. So we often think about like hosting guests, or I went to Benedictine college and I noticed that every family weekend or graduation weekend, the campus, like they would just do it up really nice because we're having all of these like new people coming and seeing the campus, and that was great. But it got me thinking about like, well, what about those of us who live here? And I'm a third order Benedictine.
oh,
So
cool.
hospitality is a thing for me, spiritually speaking.
Okay.
And because we've lived in smaller homes over the course of our family life, I thought, okay, so maybe I can't host 10 to 15 people at my house comfortably, but what about hosting my own family? Is my husband, are my children comfortable here? Or are they frustrated by how crowded it is, the excess? Can they function peaceably in our own house? And I think that became more important to me than entertaining guests. Because at some point, when we were searching for a home to purchase in Louisiana, I couldn't stand the thought of having a home without a guest room. I was
Mhm.
like, you have to have a guest room because we always had a guest room. You have to have a guest room. Where's your guest room? Well, you couldn't swing a house with a guest room. And so I had to have a mindset shift.
Mhm.
Okay, so if I'm not planning on hosting anyone, oh, but I will be constantly hosting my own family. So I think that's something that a lot of us neglect to consider is hospitality toward our own family members. And we neglect to consider it for very understandable reasons. I'm not being accusatory by any means. We neglect to consider it because these people are in front of us all the time.
Right.
Our house is in front of us all of the time. We get used to our living conditions.
Yeah.
And it's just how it is,
Well, and they might not say anything. So it might go
Yeah.
unnoticed because maybe you live with a very agreeable spouse. Not always, maybe it's not always a husband, depending on who's listening to this. Maybe your wife or your husband, they're agreeable, so they're not going to say anything about your stuff or all of your piles of things. And then the kids, it probably just comes out in behavior. Like they can't get their lives together. They can't, maybe they're argumentative about who's cleaning what, but nobody's really putting it together that it's not because you have argumentative kids and they don't like each other. It's because there's just too much to take care of that no one can manage it. But they don't know, they're not going to be like, "Hey mom, you want to take care of your stuff? Like get some of your stuff out of here?" Because they're like 5, right? So they don't, not putting it all together. They just know they're mad because
Yeah, right.
whatever. And
They're
so
like these piles of laundry are overwhelming to me. They're too stimulating.
right. Can you please get rid of some of my clothes? Because it's just too much. It's
I
just too
have too many choices in front of me, mother.
many choices. Right. Yeah. I mean, it makes them berserk. Like my kids absolutely go berserk when there's too many choices or too much going on. Yeah, it's just it's insane. And so yeah, there's a level of observation that you have to have is if you're the main household manager, which I would say probably, typically is the mother, wife, then you have to kind of take notice, like, are people's behaviors because there's too much stuff? Maybe it's we're lacking sleep or whatever, but like all these things, it's like you pull on one string and you're pulling on 50 others. So
Yeah.
It's the stuff. But yeah, your hospitality and my harmony, I think are um by definition might be different, but I think it's very much the same.
Yeah.
Like a
Agreed.
very desirable point in the house. Like, can we get along together in the house? Also, are we getting along together enough where we could invite others in as well? And I think that's I think where our words kind of hold hands is like, can we all just get along in this space? Can we work it out in this space um together peaceably with harmony? That's
Peaceably is a very big word there.
yes.
And that's actually a word I use quite often when I'm examining just the general feel of my own home. Can we function peaceably here? Can we live peaceably here?
Yeah.
It's so important. Somebody asked me recently, like, so if I were to come over to your house, would I just see a couch and, a kitchen table and there's nothing else there? And it's like, um, our home looks lived in. The biggest feature that is simple is its size. It's 1,400 square feet for 7 people. And I said that once in front of an audience, and the crowd groaned. And I was like, I'm really okay, everyone. It's okay. This was by choice. They were
Yeah.
like, oh, I was like, I'm not deprived. I'm fine. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
you know, but that's our culture. That's, America, bigger is better, whatever. And honestly, like, I even living in a smaller house, I love having my space. I do. But being able to live peaceably in this smaller house is absolutely within reach. It's something you can do. It's something you can have. And I don't know, it doesn't take extraordinary effort. It takes like tiny baby steps. We've talked about that in, what was it, last episode, Atomic Habits, just these small adjustments to your life,
Yeah.
and then you do it.
Yeah. Well, on that note, so the next two things that I came up with, they're kind of the same, but they're different enough that I'm going to talk about them separately. Is
Okay.
one of them is going to get rid of something right now.
Mm,
So I used to get really I'm my brain kind of works like all or nothing.
yeah.
So
No.
So I've talked about this previously where I would literally tell my husband, like, can you just take the kids? I just need like 4 hours to just go through this stuff. Can you take them? So I'm in the basement rummaging through the same clothes I rummaged through the last time I asked for 4 hours,
Mm,
catching glimpses of my husband out the basement window, playing with our children, right? So where I would get hung up, what my point is that do something right now. So like whatever drawer you open right now, because maybe you're going to go butter your toast or something. Open up that drawer. Is there something in that drawer that you could go right now and put in that pile? Like
yeah.
whatever in the midst of, is there something in that little cubby that you can one thing, just go put it in the giveaway. You don't need to spend 4 hours. So that's what I realized this was a thing that needed to happen for me when I recalled this quote from this book that I loved, um, where he says, "Not all or nothing, rather something sometimes."
Yeah.
That's so much better. So just do something sometimes. It's
Yeah.
convenient for me because I have a space where I can kind of put stuff away for a little bit and kind of pack it away so I don't have this pressure of like, well, if once I put it in the box, it's got to go this afternoon. For me, that works to just be able to pack it away, kind of forget about it, don't need it. If I do think about it, I can still go get it. Um,
Yeah, we've talked about that. Yeah,
right,
absolutely. So helpful.
right. But there's always something you can do right now. Like as you're perusing for a book on your bookshelf, is there a book on that shelf that you've had for 20 years and you've never cracked it open?
Yeah, right.
Like make a decision, put it in the giveaway pile, or maybe choose to read it. Choose to read the first 10 pages and see if you like it. And then
Then move.
buy
Yeah.
it. Or however it works. But that was something that I thought like that has worked for me recently is having a designated space where I can just I don't like that shirt anymore, or I don't like those shoes. I don't, I don't wear those earrings. It doesn't have to be anything gargantuan, just
Right.
something. Do something sometimes. So that works and kind of goes along with, what you just said. And then,
Okay, so could I pause you there for just a second?
yeah, absolutely.
In terms of having a designated space, I think that could be a spot where some people would get stuck, like, well, I don't have a designated space.
Mhm.
So right now you use what? Like a guest room? Yes.
But I didn't always have this space.
Okay, so what did you use before you had that space?
I'm tempted to be comical and say nothing because I didn't really get rid of stuff, but I did get rid of stuff. What did I use? I think I put stuff. So we had a basement room at our other
Mhm.
house, which was around maybe a little bit bigger, maybe 1,700 square feet. It wasn't very big.
Okay.
Um, I think I would like get a box and I would mark it. But I think this is where some of my anxiety came from. And this is just me. Maybe other people don't feel this. But my anxiety would come from I would collect a box of things. And this is where I felt like I had to do everything all at once because it was kind of out in the open. And so maybe the kids
Mm,
would start to mess with it because I really didn't have like a space behind a closed door where nobody really was. So that's different about where we live now is that I have this closed off space where I can be like, none of you, none of you go in there. Don't even think about it. Like
you're right.
this is not your space. This is grandma and grandpa's space. So everybody knows like stay out of that room. Um, but I think I just would put stuff in a box, but then that created this sense of like, did something accidentally get in the box? I got to go through the box again.
Yeah.
And so I
I
don't know,
remember you going,
maybe you can add your 2 cents to that. I really don't because that did cause me a lot of anxiety was just having that box or a couple boxes and then feeling the urgency of like there's all these boxes just kind of in this space that we do need to use. So I need to get rid of this stuff right away, you know, which is kind of ironic because that's what I'm saying to do is like do it right now. But I think that was a big source of anxiety for me at the time. But I was in a different state. So I think I've definitely grown in maturity as far as exercising that muscle of getting rid of stuff. So I think even if I was in the same space, all things progressing the same as they are now, I think I would have matured enough where I think that would be easier for me, even if I didn't have a guest room to
sure,
leave.
yeah.
But
So
also,
my
I think you could do it in smaller bits. Like it's okay if you gather a small grocery bag full of things and drop that off at the thrift store. I think we have these mental hooks of, well, when I take stuff to the thrift store, golly, it better be this big old box to show them and me that I really did some purging. Who cares? Like it can be a little a little whatever. Who cares?
Mhm.
I mean, it might not be worth your trip unless you have a thrift store conveniently next to you or whatever. Maybe that's what propels this idea that it needs to be this big box of stuff because it's like a big trip to take it to the thrift store. So you might as well
Sure.
do it in one fell swoop, but it doesn't have to be that way.
It really doesn't. I am a big fan of habitually whittling away at the excess
Mhm.
because it's the habits that make such a significant impact and form it into a lifestyle
Yeah.
instead of this reactive response of I'm overwhelmed by my surroundings. I need to spend the day getting rid of all this stuff. Like, why do we even have all of this stuff? And yeah, you can take the day. But if you want to make living simply or even just living generously a lifestyle, then it's a pretty steady evaluation of what's coming in, what is staying, and what should leave, you know?
Mhm.
And when I say what is staying, what I really mean is like what gets to stay
Yeah.
according to your life, according to what God is calling you to do, and your charisms and your gifts, and the same things among your family members. Okay, what gets to stay?
Mhm.
Because it is, I don't know, a privilege in a
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the stuff that makes its way out over time is meant for someone else to be blessed by, and isn't it such a joy? I mean, there have been times when I'm like getting rid of things and I'll pray for the person who's about to own this in whatever period of time. And and I love that because it connects me to the person
Mhm.
instead of me focusing on the material possession itself.
And
It
what
really isn't a deprivation.
right. Right.
So,
Well, and I think too, like doing it in smaller spurts alleviates the potential risk of getting rid of something that maybe is important to you, or maybe you do want to keep, but you're getting rid of it in this fury of aggravation and being frustrated in your home. That's happened to me, where one of the only things I really regret getting rid of happened during one of those sessions. And
yeah,
I mean, it's literally only been one thing, but I can't stop thinking about it because it was an irreplaceable thing. It's not something I can go get again. It was something from my childhood, something that like nobody can get it back for me. And it
mm,
what really makes me sad is that it probably ended up in the trash. Like it probably didn't even go on to bless somebody. So that's where I'm like, ah, you're but it happened because I was getting so frustrated. I hadn't made the habit of getting rid of stuff. And so it was during one of those like just throwing stuff in because I'm mad at how I've let my house become. And then oops, like big oops, like I got rid of something that actually was really important to me. So, reflecting on that, that's what memory's for, right? Not to like kick you while you're down, but to help you learn. It's like a tool.
okay,
Don't do that again, okay? Think about how that happened so it doesn't happen again. And I do think the smaller spurts are smarter. It's just a smarter way to purge for me
yeah,
anyway. I would say if you don't have the space. If you have the space like I do now to pack stuff away or put stuff in a room so you can kind of give it a few weeks for that to settle and be like, "Oh, actually use that." I think I talked about this last time, like, when I packed away all my clothes or half of
yeah,
my there have been a few pieces where I'm like, "Ah, those" there's, like, 3 pieces that I'm like, "I gotta get those out of there." But,
yeah,
like, I've kind of forgotten about and I've done fine without all of it.
yeah.
So
And I mean, I think maybe I talked about this episode one, maybe two, where I did the same thing with our microwave when we lived
yeah,
in Louisiana. And it was just this, that was the first, it felt so radical getting rid of a microwave. Like we're
yeah,
not even Americans anymore. What is this? But it was deciding, okay, so I'm not going to just cut this out, but I'll set it somewhere else and see, do we really need it? Do we really need it? And allowing that, I don't know, grace and accepting my own humanity. It's
yeah.
okay to change your mind.
Yes.
It's okay to change your mind.
Yes. Yes. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was making things easy. And I kind of forgotten that I'd attached kind of a virtue, if you will, to each of these things that have
Oh,
helped
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah. So, well, and I shouldn't say virtue, but like a little tagline. So get the first one with getting solid with your deeper yes.
Mhm.
That's vision, like having some vision for what you're about to do. And then the right now is maturity, because you need to be able to make decisions in the moment about what it is in there that you can part with. And there's some maturity that comes with that, with knowing where you are in life, knowing what you need, what you don't need. There's maturity in that. And
Mhm.
then you mentioned humility, and that's the one I attached with this last one, of make it easy. So I guess, you and I, before this started, we were talking about keep it simple. I would say that's where this comes in, is that if you can do the smallest actionable step, and if you can keep it easy, and I think we all want to go, like, I've seen this a million times, and you probably have too, on like Facebook Watch or Instagram TV or whatever, where people make these beautiful videos of like, I just got frustrated with all my stuff, and the mom's walking around her beautiful like gray and white house. It's decorated very simply, and she's like, my family's functioning so much better now. And I don't mean to sound like I'm mocking these people, like good for them, and they did what they should do, and they've done what I'm aiming to do, right?
Yeah, right.
But there takes some humility, because you can watch in that 20-second video with beautiful music what probably took them a long time to do.
Hours.
And so
Yeah.
we have to have some humility to go, it's okay for me to just get rid of 5 things and take my little grocery sack down to Goodwill or wherever I take my stuff to get rid of it. Like, there's some humility in that. Like, I don't have 4 hours. So I'm just going to take the 3 t-shirts that I can bear to part with this week.
Yeah.
It's also, for me, it's been very humbling to realize how attached I am to things that
Mhm.
aren't even sentimental, things I'm just, quite frankly, just afraid to get rid of, because I'm
Yeah.
afraid I won't be able to get them again, or I'm afraid I'll need them. There's a lot of humility to go, like, well, yeah, I'm pretty afraid of living in America, where I pretty much can get anything I want overnight, if not the same day, but I
Wow.
still have this like irrational fear of being without. I wouldn't say it's totally irrational. It's very anthropological, but that's for another podcast. But like, just to have some humility around it. Yeah, so I mean, that having that humility to accept where we are in the process, and not try to berate ourselves that we're just not so detached, and we just, this seems to be taking such a long time. Well, yeah, I mean, one, it's a lifestyle, but two, there's no, I think you said this, Katie, in one of our previous podcasts, there's really no time period that this has to be done in. So that can just kind of take the pressure off. Like, if it takes you 9 months, but it only takes this other person 2 weeks, fine, whatever. But maybe they have 2 weeks to do it. Maybe their family is set up, or maybe they're a single person and they only work part-time, or whatever their situation is. It's different than yours. And so you can't gauge how well or how poorly you're doing based on what this other person did and the time period that they accomplished it.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, as far as my experience goes, I have accepted living simply as this is a lifestyle now. This is something that will quit when I do, you know. So, um, I'm not, I know that I will want the 4-hour sessions, and I'll get those every now and then, and that's great. But in the meantime, having the small bag that I'm dropping off at the thrift store or whatever, that's great. Just making these small deposits, that's good for somebody else. It's also good for me. And I mean, so you mentioned like you have a guest room beforehand, you didn't have that guest room. I think no matter what your living situation is, you can find a space to be like, okay, it's going to live here for a little bit. So I have a box in my van that when it gets full, then I'll swing by St. Vincent de Paul and I drop it off and it's done. Or when I finish with a client, my van is usually loaded up with their stuff that we've decided to get rid of that session. And when I'm dropping off their stuff, I drop off mine too. And
Yeah.
it's great. So it's this small routine thing. And I keep, like, if I get a decent sized box, um, I'll put that in a spot in our living room that's kind of out of the way.
Yeah.
My whole family knows that's a donation box.
That's
And
genius.
oh, thank you. And my whole family knows you can just put stuff in here.
Yeah.
You know, and that's meant to be donated. Now, sometimes there are things that I'm like, no,
Like Molly Doll, like she just
like
keeps making.
like Molly doll or my wedding veil, which actually I don't think I even noticed. And then I had to go, yeah, was it Molly doll or a veil? Something very important. I think it was my veil got actually donated. And I
No.
had to go back and get it and be like, this wasn't meant for you.
This is
I'm
not.
not ready.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, incorporating this into your life and knowing that it doesn't have to be an enormous gesture.
Right.
You don't have to have the deadline.
Right.
And your approach to living simply is going to look so unique to you.
Yeah.
It'll look like anybody else's approach.
Right.
And
Right.
isn't that so great?
It is so great. It's as I would say there are some foundational principles, but really the process is going to be as unique as we all are.
Yeah, praise the Lord. Yes, and it's supposed to, because what is it that at least is for me the foundation of living simply is like, who is it that God is asking me to be?
Yes.
What
Yeah.
is it that I'm meant to do
Right.
for others? I am meant to be a wife and a mother, and okay, so let's live according to these things and the charisms that God has given me, etc. I mean, we've said it before, but when you're using these things to slice through, and your mission of hospitality or harmony,
Right.
then you can look at things and so easily recognize this as a hindrance or a support.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Which brings us back to you got to know what kind of life you're trying to go for.
Yeah, right.
Vision. You got to have the vision. And I would even say, like, get silly, write it down, sit down and write it down. Like, totally think about what it is that you want because you can have what you want. You can have what you want.
You
You've said
can't
this.
always get what you want, though.
You can't always get what you want, but you can if you're willing to make the trade-offs,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You can have what you want if you're willing to make the trade-offs.
Mhm.
So, you want a bunch of stuff? Maybe the trade-off is you don't have as many people over to your house, or maybe your family's not quite as happy as it could be, but you have what you want. And if that's what you want, I mean, that's what you want. And you're going to get it because that's what you're doing. Your behavior's aligning. So, yeah, I think it all goes back to the vision. So, my last point I already kind of talked about was the separation method and just detachment that comes with that. I would say I wouldn't say I'm all alone in this, but that most people that I know, most of my girlfriends actually that I know aren't quite as attached to stuff as I am.
Mm.
Most of the girls that I pal around with can just get rid of stuff and it's not a problem. I'm the outlier. Yeah, it is
Interesting.
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like you, like literally most of the girls that I would consider my close friends
Mhm.
can just part with things. Their husbands are more like me. But
Ooh.
yes, yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's fascinating.
yeah, the detachment though, the detachment piece, really putting stuff in the room has gone a long way, and just kind of
Yeah.
let it sit. That that has been everything. But it goes back to that first thing that I talked about is, well, maybe it wasn't the first thing, but the fear of getting rid of stuff. That is a very powerful emotion for any of us. Fear is a very powerful emotion. For me, it's overwhelmingly powerful when I think about not having what I need.
Mhm.
So, um, last year I read through the Bible, and I've known about this verse for a very, very long time, but I was reminded of it recently because I'm starting to read through the Bible again. And basically, God reminds me constantly that He's got my back. You know, things might not be super pleasant, they might be very uncomfortable, but He's got my back.
Mhm.
Everything's going to be okay. And I was reminded of this when I was reading Genesis 1, and it's in the creation account. It's after He's created man and woman. And this verse that I love so much, it's a little long, which is why I think it doesn't make it onto like pictures at Hobby Lobby or onto pillows or anything like that. Because it's kind of long and it's repetitive in nature, but it's, I think, what he was trying to inspire was, um, I need you to know this. I really need you to know this.
Mhm.
And so he's created man and woman. He's telling them you have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air. And then he says in verse 29 and following, and God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed, which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And that just, I mean, it quite literally has brought me to tears at times because it's like God saw all this stuff as good and He gave it to man, and it's everything we could ever need for to live and to deem beautiful. He gave it to us, and that just is so, in the context of this, but in the context of life, it's such a good reminder. He's already given us everything, everything. And so when I read this the other day, I was like, this makes so much more sense now, even than it did in the past, where it was like, right, right. It's okay. I can get rid of the stuff. Even the stuff I regret getting rid of. It's okay. It's
Okay, you've
oh,
survived. You've
I lived
survived.
through it. I lived through it. And I really don't think about it that much. It's all right. It's all right. It's going to be okay. It was just such a comfort again to hear that. So it kind of goes along. Well, it does go along. We always do our song at the end. So if you want to create a playlist of songs to
We
listen
should do
to,
that, like on Spotify, have
totally.
a Two Coins Culture playlist.
I think we should do it. I do. I think we should do it. So we had Bare Necessities, Five of Everything. Are those the only two songs we've had so far?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Okay. So one of my little quirks, can you call it that? Maybe other people do this. I always think I'm the only like weird one that does things. Probably not. But anyway, one thing I like to do is take secular songs because I don't really love Christian music. Sorry to say it, but I
What?
what? I know. Kick
Yeah.
me out. So I will take secular songs and I'm like, oh, that's like God talking to me. So there's this song that I came upon a while back and it's called Everything, and it's by a guy named Jay Nash. And like what I'm about to read to you doesn't really, you're going to be like, oh, that's it. But the context of the song is basically what I read to you in Genesis 1. Like Like, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about where you are in life. You don't have to worry about what you said. You don't have to worry about what you did. Everything, you're right where you should be. It's okay. Everything's okay. And that's the refrain is you have everything. You have everything you need, baby. Because God does call us baby, right? Just believe you have everything that you need. And it's such a sweet song. I it's just this reminder to me that all of the things I have, they're good. God deemed things good. Things aren't bad.
Right.
But that what I truly need, I will have when he gives it to me.
Right. According to his infinite and perfect wisdom. So when you were reading Genesis, what came to my mind was the prodigal son, like
Mhm.
the parable of the prodigal son, when the father is speaking to the other son who stayed,
Oh, yes.
jealous. And
Yes.
he says to that son, everything I have is yours. Everything I have is yours. And then when the prodigal son comes home, everything the father has is his again. And the bottom line of both of these things is God not only provides, but he provides abundantly.
Mhm.
Sometimes we need the eyes to see it
Yeah.
or the ears to hear it. But I think the antidote virtue, so if we have fear in letting go of things or whatever it is that we're attached to, the antidote there is trust.
Yes.
And son of a gun, trust is it's a hard one. And so that's why it's so necessary to ask God for it. Like give me the grace to receive trust. Like give me trust, please. Help me to trust in you. And and then to let go. Like, okay, I trust, as you say, like you have my back.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you support my entire existence. So,
Which is so interesting because in Genesis 1, that was actually the cause of the fall was distrust in
right.
God's goodness when he just plainly said, I've given you everything. I've given you everything. And
Oh,
yeah. And then and then they immediately are like tempted and take the bait to not trust that. I find that in my daily life all the time. All the time.
all the time. All the
Particularly,
time.
in context of getting rid of stuff is like I, I trust that you put me on this planet, but I don't trust that you're going to give me everything I need to do your will or to
Mhm.
live life, the life that you've given me. And that's so dependent on material things. That's where the humility comes in for me is like I believe to do God's will that I need all this material stuff. Oh
Mhm.
no. Oh no.
Oh, no. And in order to do God's will, we just have to say yes. And
Yes.
he will supply the means, you
Oh
know.
yeah. Well, yeah, because when he's calling the apostles in the New Testament, they leave everything. I love in the Gospel of Mark, when the story account in the Gospel of Mark is when he calls the apostles, the word immediately comes. Oh, right,
All the time.
all the time. Immediately. They drop their nets immediately. Like immediately they leave and they follow him.
Mark
Immediately.
is the gospel of action.
Oh, I love the Gospel of Mark. So, and it's also one of the biggest ones of healing too, where he talks about healing people. So, I mean, we could go there, but we'll go there another
Yeah.
time about how following him through trusting him and getting rid of stuff, how that does heal stuff. I feel like this has been one of the most important acts I've done to help heal my memory, help heal my physical body, help heal my relationships is to detach from the stuff and go through and decide really what's important.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
mean to sound hyperbolic, but I really do believe that this is one of the biggest. I think I'll look back on my life when I'm older. I'll look back on my life and be like, that time period was sacred, because it was really where I was like, I'm letting go. Big trust fall here, that I'm gonna have everything I need, and that you're gonna reveal to me the deeper meaning of my life, rather than what I've tried to create for myself in gathering all these belongings.
What I've tried to create for myself. Oh, there's another episode in there for sure. Oh my gosh.
Um,
How often do we just like grasp for things and we're like, you know what? I need this because I think I need this. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to keep this and I'm not going to give it away. And I mean, everything from the possessions we have to the relationships we form. You
Mhm.
know, what is it that you're trying to fill that you're not entrusting to God to fill Himself?
Or
You
who are
know,
you trying to be? Like we've talked about identity too. Like who are you
yeah,
trying to make yourself believe you are, or make other people believe you are by what you possess?
yeah,
Yeah, good stuff. Okay,
girl,
to be continued. Katie, always, always a pleasure.
such a pleasure.